Right, welcome to the healing art of Amatsu. And why the healing art specifically? Well, when I was training, one of my fellow students described Amatsu as, it's a well-known phrase, but a riddle inside a mystery inside an enigma. Because it's actually quite difficult to describe Amatsu to people who have never experienced it. And that's an ongoing thing that I find. You actually do need to experience it at some point just to understand the subtlety of it. And it's the subtlety of it that I think is its unique selling point, actually. So I'll talk a bit more about that. But Amatsu, which is not to be confused with shiatsu, which is a massage technique. Amatsu is, in essence, it's a soft tissue therapy, okay, that originates from Japan. And it dates back at least 5,000 years, possibly more than that. And one of the things that really makes Amatsu unique is that it's actually a marriage between traditional healing techniques, traditional medicine, and martial arts. It's a very interesting marriage. So it's concerned with the health of the body, but interprets that by way of the body's movement. You can tell a lot about the health of the body by the way it moves, and I'll say a lot more about that. So, as I said, the roots trace back over 5,000 years, and it was brought into modern practice by Dr Hatsumi Masaaki, who himself is a grand master of 9 martial arts, and he saw the potential for harnessing the way in which people move, particularly having observed ninjas and having been a practitioner himself of martial arts. He noticed that the way you move and how your body structure aligns itself is the key to health. It's actually, if I really break it down to its basics, it's actually about your walking pattern and how you walk, how the legs, the pelvis and the spine align and work synchronistic to actually create movement. That's one of the key elements to it, and it is by looking at that, and as well as taking into account all the other components of the human body, that Amatsu is kind of born. So the central sort of thought around this is that if you can reteach the body, almost like rebooting your laptop, if you can get the body to relearn how to move properly, that is the key to either avoiding injury and illness or recovering from it pretty quickly. So it's about relearning, sort of rebooting your computer and learning how to move properly in a more natural way, because a lot of the way that we move is not natural, even though we think that it is. And natural body movement, there's a term for it in Amatsu, it's called taijutsu, which literally translates to natural body movement. And if you observe animals, for example, and the way that animals move, you ever watched a cat or dog move, and how synchronized it is and effortless, it's really about thinking about how we move, because we don't. We do what we do, and we consider that to be our normal. So natural body movement. Now, within Amatsu, as practitioners, we treat the body as a whole. So all the interconnected structures within the body are taken into account with Amatsu. We don't just look at one area. We look at the interconnectedness of all the body's structures, and I'll come back to that in a moment. And what we're attempting to do is to harness the natural body movement so that we can get your body to a state where it will actually heal itself. The body is actually designed to heal itself, and because of the way we live, because of traumas that we're carrying, injuries and illness, we lose the ability to do that. So if we can get the body to move efficiently in the way that it's designed to, your body will do what it's naturally designed to do, without an awful lot of invasion or intervention. So the reason why it's, when I talk about the subtlety of it, is that Amatsu uses a very light touch. And that's another kind of unique element of Amatsu. It can almost feel as though the practitioner hasn't done an awful lot. But we have. Okay. These very light touches to specific points along the body have a ripple effect. Think of a drop of water in a large bucket of water, one tiny drop and it ripples out. That's the principle of Amatsu. Tiny corrections at key points along the body have a ripple effect that corrects a number of imbalances at any given time. So you might not you're not necessarily correcting one thing, you're actually, the ripple effect is going to catch a lot of other things that are going on with you. And because it is a very light, very, very light, subtle touch, it's also beneficial for us practitioners as well. We don't overextend ourselves, we don't have to use a huge amount of strength or tension in our hands and muscles. So it's beneficial for us, and it means that we can practice for a very long time because there's no stress on our bodies whatsoever. We use our whole body to practice, not just a specific point. We're not pressing or applying too much pressure on any part of ourselves. So we benefit from it as well. Okay. Now, as I said, the human body is designed to move freely and at will. That's what we're naturally designed to do. That's what we instinctively want to do. And if there are any restrictions or pulls in any given part of your body, you're automatically pulled out of alignment. So you're not moving properly, and your body over time adapts to that because it's a repetitive movement, and that becomes your normal. You start to think of that as your normal. So I think what I would say is that the body molds to the shape of its usage. So whatever you're doing repetitively, that's the shape your body will take. So if you think about how you sit down, how you stand up, how you sit at a desk, how you sit when you're watching TV, how you sit in your car, how you bend down to pick things up, daily activities will pull you out of shape. It doesn't have to be a trauma or an injury. Daily habits will do it. And once you're out of alignment and your body then starts to try to compensate for that, that's the shape your body takes. And over time you get used to that, and suddenly that becomes your normal, and you forget that this is not actually the way I'm supposed to be moving. Okay, so what's going on when that happens is that the restriction, there's a pull going on somewhere in your body depending on what you've done. There's a pull, and over time the fascia becomes, and the tissue becomes tighter and tighter and tighter, and the body then has to recruit from elsewhere just to keep you upright and balanced as best it can. And you are distorted even though you don't necessarily feel that you are. Okay. Okay, so what Amatsu does in essence is, by freeing up the restrictions, we're giving you back space because you're contorted, so we open you up again so that your body can move more freely. You're not sort of hunched, you're not tight. You open up again so everything flows in the way that it can, and you actually feel almost lighter. You're moving in the way that you're designed to do. Okay, and to illustrate that, because I think it's always good to give a visual. So actually, if anybody would like to, can you stand up for a second? Anybody who's happy to stand up for a second. And what I want you to do is, for a moment, just from ground, from the soles of your feet to the top of your head, take a scan, if you stand up straight, and take a scan of your body from the soles of your feet to the top of your head. And just focus on how are you standing? If you've got weight on one foot more than the other, one foot probably slightly out or slightly in. Where are your knees? How do your hips feel? How's your back? You can close your eyes if you want to and really feel it. What's your spine doing? Where are your shoulders? Where's your head? Leaning to one side possibly? Sort of twisted off to one direction? Just feel, what's your normal? if you're feeling now, this is what you're used to, this has become your normal, does it feel balanced? Think about that for a couple of seconds. Okay. Now you can take your seat again. How do you feel? How do people feel? By all means, sit down.
I feel straight, but probably not.
Did you actually feel that you were upright and balanced?
I could notice where I have a bit of underlying niggling plantar fasciitis, right, originating from slip disc.
Ah, okay.
And so it's generally there.
So you could feel it, you were conscious of it.
And the tendons tight. So you could just feel, was aware of that.
Interesting. Because that's not something we do. We don't scan ourselves in that way to think about, actually, how am I standing? How am I moving? What's become normal for me? So it's just interesting to do that and take stock of where you are, because often we're not where we think we are. We think we're straight, but we're not necessarily. Something may be off, because daily life pulls you out that way. Okay? So, what am I talking about when I talk about balance? Well, Amatsu doesn't just think about the balance in terms of structurally how you're standing. There are 5 components to Amatsu, which we refer to as your godai. Okay, there are 5 key elements that that a practitioner is looking at when we are going to assess you and treat you. And the 5 elements, and they are all equally important, and they are interconnected. So first of all, your mind. When we take an assessment of a client, we're thinking about your mind. What's going on with you emotionally? Where are you mentally, emotionally? Are you stressed? Are you tired? Are you upset? Are you angry? Because that contributes to the shape your body takes. It contributes to how your internal structures are interacting with each other. So emotions play a huge part. As I said, mood, stress, anger. And then the actual structure of your body. Now, that sort of exercise where we were standing up, one of the things that we look at as soon as you walk in, actually, and the Amatsu practitioner will be looking at when you walk into the clinic, how you're walking. We can sort of clock how you're walking, how are your arms swinging, what's the position of your legs, have you got toes out, maybe toes in. You kind of do a scan of a person when you come in. So structurally, there are things that you can tell immediately. So the physical body and how things are aligned, obviously, is key. Now, the third thing is energy. Okay, and energy is particularly in relation to your nervous system. And one of the things about Amatsu is that we, as practitioners, we are actually interacting and communicating with your nervous system. It's an important part of our practice. We are, in the assessment and treatment, we're communicating with your nervous system and actually asking it questions that give us clues as to where we need to focus our treatment. So your nervous system is very important. Your nerve impulses. We also use meridians, acupuncture meridians, but we use them very differently from the way that other complementary practitioners use them. The relevance they have to us is because there is a correlating organ and a muscle that is interacting with that meridian point. So it's what's happening with all of them. And also acupuncture points for us are usually sitting on top of a problem area. If we test and there's definitely something going on, that there's usually some kind of pulse, something is going on underneath that acupuncture point, and we can use that acupuncture point as a point of correction. So they are clues to help us to determine where to focus our treatment. So the fourth element is environmental. What's going on with you? And that could be work stress, family stress, where you live. It's, there's a whole manner of things that go into your environment, but it impacts us, and our shape is also determined by that. The shape that we take, if we're holding on to stuff that's environmental, our lifestyle, our habits, things that we take for granted and don't even think about, do contribute to the shape that we take. And the final element is chemical. And that is anything that we ingest, whether it's something we're eating or drinking, medications that we might be taking, anything that we ingest. So all of those 5 elements have a symbiotic relationship with each other, and we have to consider them all. Okay? So a tiny correction at a specific point in the body will impact the effects of all of those things. Does that make sense? Okay. Just to give you a sort of more specific example of that, of how those things connect with each other. So an example of how GODI is assessed by us. So we have an elderly woman who falls over a crooked paving stone in the road and hurts her leg. So environmental, the paving stone, and injury to the leg, physical. She's in shock and severe pain, so electrical, because we're talking about nerve impulses. She's given pain relief and a saline drip in hospital, so we've got chemical. She's extremely angry at herself for not seeing the paving stone and very angry at the council for not repairing it. So she's emotional. And so we've got physical. And she gets on well with the staff at the hospital and starting to feel generally better about herself. So we have emotional again. And the medicine that she receives is helping her with the pain, so it's chemical. So there's a shift going on. She enjoys the company of the other people, of the other ladies on the ward. And so we have emotional, because she's happy again. And as her leg starts to heal, physical, she's in less pain, chemical, and the feel-good factor of getting better and knowing that, and having this new group of friends, emotional. So all of those things correlate. In one injury, there are so many different aspects to how it impacts this person. Okay? So, we've got the 5 elements that we have to consider for every person, but what is it that we're really thinking about in terms of the body structure and what's happening, how these things impact? And there is a term that is very, very central to Amatsu, and that's biotensegrity, a linking of the 2 words biology and tensegrity. Has anyone ever heard the term tensegrity before? No.
It's a model that demonstrates it.
Right. Has anyone ever watched Grand Designs?
No.
Right, Kevin MacLeod. And do you hear Kevin MacLeod talk about the tensegrity of buildings? It's a term that he uses. Go back and watch and repeat. He does often talk about the tensegrity of buildings. And what we mean by biotensegrity is the human body is a self-supporting structure. And what it's trying to do at any given time is to keep us upright and balanced. And in order for that to happen, there are a number of pulls and checks and balances going on in the body to make that happen. So it involves sort of the interplay of pulls and pushes and compressions to keep the body aligned. And it's the relationship between tissue and fascia and bones, muscle, all of that working together to harness, the force needed to keep the body in the correct position. So biotensegrity is really integral to what we do. It sort of recognises that the whole body is greater than the sum of its parts, because it's the relationship between the body structures that matter. Muscles and ligaments are always under tension because we don't lie flat, do we? We're constantly moving. And it's that tension, it has to be the correct tension to keep us where we need to be. So in terms of thinking about it as a building, the human body is a building or a structure, It's almost the same as saying a structure is only as strong as its weakest link. Okay? So if you load one corner of a structure, there will be the whole structure will give to accommodate that additional load. But if the load is too heavy, then the structure will eventually give under that weight. And that's what the body does. If the pull is too tight, that restriction is just too great. The body then can't, it's done all it can to try to recruit and adapt to compensate, but it can only do that so far. At some point, it's going to really give. Does that make sense? Okay. So, let me demonstrate biotensegrity, because I think it's useful to see it now. Can I have maybe 3 or 4 volunteers who are prepared to come and stand up front and do a little exercise with me? Maybe one more person. No? It's not dangerous, I promise. You won't get hurt. Thank you, John. Okay. Thank you. Now, if I can ask the 3 of you to line up facing that wall, one behind the other, and all I would like you to do is... Completely up to you. It's not going to be rigorous. Won't have you running around. All I want you to do is arms on each other's shoulders. Well, obviously you won't be able to, but arms on each other's shoulders, straight arms, and that's all. Don't lean, very lightly on each other's shoulders. Okay, you can put yours down actually, because yours. So you are the human body. You're a self-supporting structure now. You've all got, you're linked. There's a link there. And I'm going to stand at the back here, and I'm just going to put my hands on your back, okay? And I don't want you to do anything at all, okay? And I'm just going to very gently what's happening?
I'm about to fall.
Okay. What's happening? Okay. Okay.
But I've got more pressure in my hand.
She's lost your tensegrity, right? Okay.
Yeah,
what can you feel, Tim?
Well, it's all being felt in the feet, with the forward pressure. I'm having to push down on my feet to achieve balance.
Right. Thank you. I'll stop now. That's fine. And you can sit down now. The point I was trying to demonstrate is I didn't actually do very much. I didn't push you. All I did was move weight from one foot to the next. That's all I did.
Okay.
Very small movement, no force at all, but the movement rippled down the line. So Tim was affected by that very small move, and everybody moved. So one tiny move from me rippled along the line, and that's how tensegrity works. So one pull in the body affects the whole structure because it pulls out of alignment. Okay. Okay. So I really want to make the point that it isn't simply about trauma and injuries. It is about very small habits that can create pulls out of seemingly nothing. Everyday habits can cause these pulls, but over time, because of the shape that your body's taking, become really problematic.
Is that psychosomatic in terms of emotional?
There's emotion involved in it, because as the pulls become more and more severe and you become less and less able to do things that you want to do, it could be daily habits or whatever, that has an emotional impact, and that then it becomes almost self-reinforcing. So it is about the effect it has over time, and you feeling less and less able, less and less like your body's your own, I think, in terms of the effect that it has. Okay, so what Amatsu actually does is we use, as I said, a very light touch to specific points along the body. We do an assessment, which I'll come to in a second, but we use a very light touch to home in on where we need to make that correction, because where the pain or the the discomfort is being felt is not necessarily where the problem originates from. Because of the tensegrity, it's not, the problem didn't originate at Tim, I was the problem at the back, but Tim felt the effect of it and you did too to some extent. So it's not where you feel the pain all the time, it's where the correction needs to be made. So how we describe that pull, that tightness, that imbalance, we call them lesion patterns. And these lesion patterns are formed over time. And what we do is we track around your body to find where that lesion pattern is. Where is the one that is going to be the correct one for me to make that change in your body tissue, in your soft tissue, to free up that tightness, okay? And that specific point that we home in on to make the change is known as a kyushu, which literally translates from Japanese to mean a critical point of change. We ask your body questions as we assess you, and we find clues as to where your body directs us to where we need to go, where we need to focus on that one specific area to make that change. And I think what I would describe it as, every body tells a story, because where that point of change will be different on every single person in this room. So it's where it is for you. It's very individual in that way. Okay. And what we do when we move that soft tissue very, very gently is we're freeing up the tissue, creating space, giving you back some mobility and helping the structure to realign and for everything to flow in the way that it needs to. Okay, so it's actually it's a joint effort between the practitioner and the client, actually, because I have to use my whole body to follow what your body is doing. So my hands are obviously very important and all that, but it's my whole body that's involved in every single movement. So I follow where your soft tissue takes me, if that makes sense. So I'll get to that a bit later, but I have to use good body movement, which is where the martial arts component really kicks in, to make sure that I am not overextending, I'm not pressing, I'm not doing anything that stresses myself, because that will then, you'll feel that, and I'm not going to achieve the change that you want. So when you see Amatsu practitioners work, it can almost look dancer-like or like Tai Chi, because we kind of all, it's this, and we use our whole bodies to work. We don't just, it's not one hand, it's the whole body is involved in corrections. Okay. Right, so how do we actually do it? How do we make these changes that I'm talking about? Well, something that's very, very important to Amatsu, and before we can treat anybody, before we can even assess them, there's one crucial thing that has to happen at the beginning of a treatment, and that's called unswitching. Has anybody ever heard of unswitching? Unswitching. Okay, unswitching. That relates to what I mentioned before about how we as practitioners communicate with your nervous system. Everybody is at any given time in a state of being neurologically disorganized. That's called being switched. So when somebody comes in to see me, before treatment can commence, we have to unswitch them. So to get your nervous system back into some kind of organization so that you can actually receive the treatment that I'm going to give. But the important thing is that I as a practitioner also have to be unswitched. Because if I'm switched, I'm not going to be able to get the readings that I need from you. And if you're switched, any results that I get from you are not going to be reliable. So I have to be switched in it. So it makes you very conscious as a practitioner that you have to be in the right place to treat the person that's on the couch. So what is unswitching? Unswitching is basically the stimulation of specific acupuncture points on the body. And the reason that we do it, we stimulate them before treatment, is because you're preparing the body for treatment by actually reminding the body of where it is actually in space and time, and that this is my front, this is my back, this is my top, this is my... So the body is able to organise itself neurologically in a place where it can now receive what's coming. And what we do as practitioners is and it's very, very quick, it takes about a minute or so, less than that is, you would be on the couch and we basically trigger these acupuncture points. So here, kidneys, and all it is gentle palpations to that for about 10 to 15 seconds. And here to your umbilical cord. And you can do this on yourself, spleen and pancreas at the sides, and under the coccyx, and belly button there. And I will unswitch anybody who cares to try that later on. But what you're doing with that, it's a very, very, again, very light touch, and that is integral to the treatment. You have to unswitch. So it's also important to unswitch between clients as well, because if I've treated you and you've gone off happy, I need to be sure that I haven't taken anything that's not mine. If you're very empathic, you can take on sort of emotionally where people are. So I unswitch once I've treated you, so that I'm then prepared to treat you, and that's how one of the ways that we take care of ourselves as well. Unswitching is a tool that since I did my training, I have not every single day I unswitch. I unswitch every single morning. If I'm going into a situation that is going to be a little bit difficult or stressful, I unswitch. If I'm coming out of a situation that's been a little bit challenging, I unswitch. If I'm going on a long journey, I unswitch. I went on holiday in October and I unswitched on the plane. Okay. On the plane. I stood up, went to the back and unswitched because it was a bit of a shaky flight. So it's been a real tool for me in terms of just helping me to just help my system to calm itself at times when I feel that that's necessary. And I can honestly say it has made a real difference to my quality of life. That's my fellow practitioner over there.
Absolutely agree. If I find myself getting into a bit of a tizzy at any point, I'll go straight to unswitching. And I taught my children as well.
Yeah.
You know, before exams, before you go to the dentist. Yeah.
It's very easy to learn, and obviously a lifelong tool that's worth having. So I will show you how to do that a bit later on. So unswitching is very, very important to treatment. So the points that we trigger are these just below the clavicle here. Those are your kidneys, kidney 27, and the navel here, which is conception vessel, meridian. And then we've got spleen, pancreas either side. We've got governing vessel and conception vessel here at the upper lip, and we've also got conception vessel, governing vessel behind, basically under your coccyx. So those are triggered in turn, two at a time, and that is preparation for treatment. Okay.
Are those anything to do with acupuncture points?
They are specific, they're specific acupuncture points. And then you further unswitch, so you do that, and then you kind of extend the unswitching process with a very small strike to the heel of each foot, very, very light. And what that does is it sends energy from the heel across your centre of energy to the opposite shoulder, and to that heel across your centre of energy to the opposite shoulder, and that completes the whole unswitching process. And that alone actually is so powerful and has such benefits that alone can correct some imbalances just by doing that. So even if you unswitch and do nothing more, you've given your body a treatment, a kind of mini treatment. That's how powerful unswitching is. And very easy to learn, and I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so what does a treatment actually consist of? I'm not going to do one here today because I would need to take a history, and it's quite I allow about an hour for a treatment to do, so we're not going to have time for that. But it involves me taking a history. First of all, there's a detailed medical form that I need you to fill out, and that's because I need to make sure there are no contraindications, nothing that's going to be unsafe for you. Okay. I'm also looking at I'm checking all aspects of your Godai, so your 5 elements. I'm looking at the way you move. And another thing that's very important with Amatsu is we need you to be fully clothed, okay? You don't have to undress, and actually the looser your clothing, the better. I mean, I've got these on. I would even prefer something baggier than these for a client, because what we're looking at is how your clothes hang on you. They tell a lot about your alignment, and also where the creases are give us clues about where you've got some difficulty going on. So it's really good. You really look at how people's clothes hang on them. It reveals a lot. So so I will take a history and we'll look at your Godai. Depending on what your presenting problem is, there are certain orthopedic tests that we do use. And basically they're tests of range, really, just to see what you can and can't do at the beginning of the session, and then at the end I may retest those just to see if we've opened up those areas sufficiently. So we'll do those initially, and then I'll unswitch you, and then we'll get to the treatment. Now, we do an important part of our treatments is muscle testing. But the important thing about how we do muscle testing is that it's very different to how, for example, a physiotherapist would muscle test.
What about kinesiology?
We're not interested in strength. I don't care how strong your quad is. That's not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at, first of all, to test it. Can I get it into the position that I need to get it into? So will your limb do what I need to do? If it can't, that tells me something. Okay. When I pick up your limb, what I'm looking at is not how strong it is, I'm looking at how it responds to me picking it up. Does it kind of fire up at the point that it's moved? That's what I'm looking at. It's that immediate reaction. That's what we're testing, not how strong it is. You're using it, we know you can do what you can do. It's not strength, it's reaction, and what it's actually telling me as I hold it in my hand. So there are the muscle tests that are really, I think, significant for us are the muscles that attach to the pelvis, because the pelvis is the starting point for corrections. If your pelvis is not balanced, then nothing else is going to work. We always start by balancing the pelvis. That, for some people, will do it, actually. That will, because that's often thing that's problematic. So if you can balance your pelvis, you're good. Yeah, so we'll balance your pelvis, test that that's where it needs to be, and then look at anything else that may need some attention. So the pelvis is always the starting point. It's about, we check whether you've got a tilt, either a forward tilt or backward, because that will then impact whether your hamstrings are being pulled or your quads are being pulled, depending on where the tilt is. That's throwing your pelvis out, which is throwing everything else out. So we start here, and then if we correct that, that's often enough. If there are other things that we need to correct after that, we will do it. But the balancing of the pelvis is key, because that's your walking, that's your spine, that's your shoulders. Okay, and the corrections, the testing that we do is by testing the muscles in the way that we do, testing the acupuncture points as well. We will test them for what they tell us about what's going on underneath the skin at that particular point. So we're looking for clues. Where do I need to make this correction? Not where is the pain, where's the best point for me to make this correction? Is it on the upper body or the lower body? Is it on the front or back? Where is the best, most effective place for me to make this correction? And then we home in on a specific point, a Kyushu, critical point of change, and that's where our correction will go. And the correction itself is as light can be, to the point where you're actually going to wonder, what is she doing here? What am I paying my money for? I can't feel anything. But it's that light. If you think about, if I had a block of butter here on the table in front of me, and I just sort of rested my hand on that block of butter. Don't have to push too hard. It's going to kind of ease its way through that butter, isn't it? It's that level of touch that we're talking about. It's that light. And the reason why it's effective is because I'm not forcing it. It's my whole body that's being used, not one sort of tensed hand. My whole body is making that correction, and I'm actually using my fingers not to dig you, but to actually follow where your soft tissue is taking me. And believe it or not, that small point of correction can actually move my whole body, and I can actually just go like that and follow where it leads me. It's quite, and it's that subtle and that gentle. So I go where your soft tissue takes me. It will take me into that lesion pattern. So I'll go in there, make that correction, and then come out of it. And what I've done is freed up space. And then I'll do a little bit of mobilization to make sure that I am freeing up that space, and possibly some very, very light massage to that spot to just make sure that we're really sort of locking it in. And that's basically what we do. So it's a very light touch to a very specific area to make a change to the soft tissue to free up the restriction, and using my whole body to do it as opposed to any force. So treatments also, the completion of a treatment ends with something called an occiput hold, which is, I will literally, so there's a cranial therapy element to this as well. So what I will do is, once the treatment's completed, you get a very lovely occiput hold, which is me basically cradling your head in my hands very, very lightly, and it will make you purr like a kitten. It's so lovely. But that's the end of the treatment, and that is really kind of sealing it in and giving a little bit more release to the neck and the shoulders, and that's gold, that part of it. That's probably most people's favourite part of it. It is just, from a wellness point of view, it's such a lovely thing to be able to do for people, and that's the thing that people often like most, just to have your head held in a very kind of soft, there's no digging of the fingers, nothing, it's literally just cradling it with a very, very, very subtle stretch going on that is so freeing and takes a lot of that tension out of the neck and spine. Okay. So I won't go. Any questions about muscle testing? Do I need to expand on that a bit more? No, you get that. Okay. So I wanted to say something about stress. Okay, because of the unique way that Amatsu does communicate with the nervous system, and there is a lot of stress around at the moment for people for lots of different reasons, and you do see it in people's posture, and how sort of hunched people are at the moment. And the difficulty with stress is you can not realize how stressed you are, and you continue with habits that compound your stress and ultimately lead to injury. So stress is probably the root cause of a lot of the difficulties that people have, because of the way in which their bodies are being forced to recruit. So if your body is tight, or specific parts of your body are tight, it impacts the way that you carry out even your basic daily living activities. You're recruiting and compensating, and over time compounding. The stress is increasing because it's becoming more and more difficult, and it's becoming a catch-22. So these pulls that are going on are actually a large part of what Amatsu can really, really help with, and free up. The thing about stress is as well, and the the impact on the body. The integral tools of Amatsu, such as the unswitching and the occiput hold at the end, are very much valuable tools to have in terms of combating stress, because that's just the experience of it, lying there having a head held in a very, very supportive way, and the freeing up of this area around here. That is very good in terms of on a yoga teacher, actually, and she's very body aware and knew exactly what was going on with her. She had an issue with her left hip, but corrected her, balanced her pelvis. But what she really took from it, and what she contacted me about the next day, was the fact that she slept really well. It was the sleep that did it for her, because although this was problematic, it was that hold and the stuff that I did around her neck and her shoulders that really made the difference. So this was obviously enough of a bother for her to come, but what she took away and what she valued most was what it did for her in terms of sleep and stress. So I can't say that enough, really. Okay. Right, so let me say a bit more about stress from my perspective as well, because I just want to explain a bit about what brought me to Amatsu as well. I qualified in 2019, and I came to Amatsu having had a very long career in children's social care. Over 25 years of working with children in safeguarding, at the very, very sharp end of safeguarding, where decisions matter and where children are in very unsafe situations and you have to act, and there are lots of crises. And I spent 25 years not really sleeping very well, real chronic insomnia on a Sunday night, because I would be dreading going in on Monday morning and what's gone on over the weekend and what am I going to be facing. And completely normalised it, and my attitude was, well, everybody's stressed. So my response to this was, I know what I'll do, I just need to be a bit more energetic, a bit more fitter. I'll go to the gym and I'll get myself more energetic and I'll be able to manage. So what I was doing was having very long stressful days and then finishing work and going to the gym, doing very high impact workouts and stressing my body even more, and then wondering why I can't sleep. Couldn't figure it out. Why am I not sleeping? So, and when
What do you do to relax? And they go, oh, I'll go to the gym.
why is that? Always our response. I'll go to the gym, and not quite putting two and two together there. So, and it took a gym injury to stop me in my tracks, okay? And I could not train, I could not do anything for about 18 months. I was lifting away and I lowered it incorrectly, and it took, it was sciatica, but also it hurt my back quite badly, and I could not train. So now I'm laid up and I can't do anything, and that's what it took to actually stop me and make me think, well, hold on, this is really not the way to live. And I'd never heard of Amatsu. This was in 2017, and I'd never heard of Amatsu, and somebody recommended it as a way. It was gradually healing, but I felt like I'd plateaued and I wasn't getting better quickly enough. And somebody recommended Amatsu, and I thought, okay, well, I'll give this a try. And the immediate effect of it was something that I don't know if I can find the words to describe to you, actually, how immediate, just in terms of taking the tension out of my body and just making me feel, okay, God, it's like exhaling. And it, not only did it help me to get over that plateau and actually heal, but the practitioner discovered another underlying thing that was going on with me that I had no idea about. I had latent TB that had formed abscesses at the base of my spine as well, which was another reason why things were not, and that was picked up in an Amatsu session. So I then had to get treatment for that. But it was, the effect of it was so profound that I thought, I need to learn, I need to understand this, I need to learn this, because it really felt like she didn't do very much. What did you do that actually? So I went and did the Amatsu training, and that was 2 years, and I qualified in 2019 with a view to starting practice in 2020, but the world went into lockdown. So it's been a bit of a stop-start process for me. But it was the fact that something so minimal had such a profound effect, and I couldn't explain to other people what this thing was that this person had done. I just knew that it worked, and I thought, well, I need to know how to do this, so I can perhaps learn to do this, to offer it to other people. So that's been my journey, and my thinking is there are other ways to support people and help people that don't involve stressing my body and not sleeping and incurring suffering on myself, and this has been a really wonderful way to do that. So, and because of the tools it's given me, the unswitching and the self-care aspects of it, it's been such a helpful treatment. So that's what's brought me to it. And I think that the best way to kind of demonstrate it, if we got time before, can I unswitch somebody? Would anybody like to be unswitched? This, lift your arm, I wouldn't do that. An Amatsu practitioner wouldn't do that, or this. We wouldn't do that. It's all about, my whole body has to move her arm. So it would be this.
Yeah.
Fully supported.
Yeah. So my whole body is involved in the movement. So there's no stress on me whatsoever. And to do a correction, if I was, thighs are very good. There's always lots of good Kyushu points to change on thighs. So if I was going to, sorry, I'm just going to find a point. If I was going to make a correction to this point, my fingers would rest very, very lightly on it. I would cover that just to give stability, and I would literally just stand here and go where her tissue takes me. And that might be to the left, it might be to the right, it might be a bit back, it might be forward, but my balance stays equal. So there's no stress on my body, my hands are not tensed and doing anything, they're just resting on the soft tissue and going where it takes me, and that's why it can feel, it's very non-invasive, and you should almost feel like there's very little going on, but the tissue's giving way. After about 30 seconds, the tissue really starts to respond, and it will take you somewhere. And over time, that will free up.
I want to have a session now.
But it's amazing for any. I mean, my fellow practitioner here, who's very much more experienced than me and has, as I said, been almost a mentor to me in this journey. But I'm sure there's a story or two that you can tell.
It's just an amazing practice.
We are examples, us too.
Are you? But these are a couple of my clients actually. They wanted to know what I'm doing. They come along and listen to Diane and they'll know what it is I'm doing.
It would be good to hear from you as recipients of it though, because we as practitioners, I mean we have our own treatments as well, but as you know, clients who've received it and know what it actually feels like to lie on the couch and receive this, it would probably be useful to hear what your thoughts about it are.
Well, firstly, I've known Nicola before I went to her as a practitioner. So she's a friend. It's like we're neighbours. But when I went to her, it did, as you said, it made such a difference. You know, the whole body, and I knew something because I've done yoga for many years. So I knew one part of the problem that I felt on one side was because of the other side.
Yeah.
But I didn't know why and how. But every time I go to Nicola, it just It gets better, then I go to my bad habits because I delay going to her again for months. But the relaxation of it at the end is amazing. I can, as you said, it's the best night's sleep you can have. It's just amazing, really. And I can only relax under her hands.
Isn't that interesting?
It's just amazing. I just say you have to come to you.
You can even just start with the unswitching, actually.
Yeah.
You can see people's bodies just...
Absolutely.
But it has made a big difference to me, definitely.
And that's an important point as well, because the practitioner's touch will feel very, very different. My touch will feel very different from Nicola's. So you do get accustomed to a particular practitioner's way of doing it. We're using the same techniques, but it will feel quite different with each practitioner.
And I've learned about the best way of walking as well, because Nicola told me how to walk, and sometimes I forget and I just I have to walk properly. Then when you do it, it's like you're walking on air. You're not actually walking, you're just flying. It's very
because your body's biotensegrous.
Yes.
So it's moving itself. So the most difficult step you take is the first one. That's where you put the effort in. And then once you're moving, everything moves. And then the next difficult step is when you stop.
Absolutely.
You have to put effort in to stop. If you're moving well.
So how many sessions are standard for a
It
client?
very much depends on what the presenting problem is. I mean, as I said, some people, you can clear up certain imbalances in one session, actually, depending on what it is. Other people, it averages around 6 to 8, depending on how long it takes your body to really bed down the changes. But my recommendation would be 6 to 8 to really get the full. Can be. I wouldn't do it more frequently than weekly. I think it would not be in your best interest. It's not advisable for your body, because you are interacting with the nervous system, you do need to allow time and space between each, but weekly is fine.
So how do you assess? How do you assess? I mean, you can hear the clients talking about good night's sleep. How do you assess at the beginning of the next session?
In terms of what
the benefits have been?
Well, I do encourage feedback, and people are very good about coming back and saying, this was good or whatever. You do need to check how they're feeling, and at the beginning of each session you are then looking at, because some things you'll leave the treatment and go right back to the bad habit that brought you there in the first place. So it is about the re-education as well, excuse me, and the aftercare advice as well. So you shouldn't, following a session, you shouldn't be doing anything strenuous, no heavy lifting, nothing, no exerting. You do need to keep hydrated. You do really need to look after yourself after an Amatsu treatment to really get the full benefits of it. Not do it and then run back to doing something very stressful that's going to pull you out of alignment again. You're trying to build good habits into your body. I think it's Dr Masaaki says human beings are the only species that have to be taught how to walk properly because we're not doing it properly. Animals do it instinctively, so it's about the re-education of your body.
I was trying to think where I heard that comment before, but it's Strictly Come Dancing that the contestants often say, well, the first thing they did was to teach me to walk properly.
It's actually, that's a good example of it, actually, Dance will do that, So it is, and as I said, there is a kind of, do you agree, kind of almost dancer-like quality to it sometimes, in terms of how you have to move to be a practitioner?
Like you said, with the martial arts.
Yeah, you can definitely see, the marriage of the two things,
all of that.
Absolutely.
What would you say the actual, thinking about the communication with the fascia and so like you say, it is a type form of healing, and what you're feeling, say sometimes osteopaths, when Connie, for instance, or John are working, and they can be this very gentle. It's connecting with the patient, I guess, and then
it is. It's very much It's a two-way process. So even though you are laying there and you're not actively moving around an awful lot, but it is I go where your tissue takes me.
Yeah.
And that may not be where you're expecting to go.
No.
Yeah, but it is very much about, and as you get into, and I'll say a bit more about there are different levels of it, but soft tissue is just one aspect of it. There are other aspects of Amatsu that can we can be even more precise in terms of how we work with the head and cranial stuff as well. So the soft tissue, the main areas of the body, is just one aspect of it. So Amatsu, there are 3 levels to Amatsu: Anma, Sitai, and Shinden. Anma is the first level of Amatsu, which is a year's training, and that is very much focused on the muscles and joints, and making corrections to larger areas of the body, if I put it that way. It's understanding the interplay between the muscles and joints, what happens when you flex and extend, and why restrictions happen. And the corrections that are involved in Anma are very much what I was demonstrating there. It will be homing in on a specific piece of soft tissue or a joint, making that correction. The correction's usually followed up by some kind of mobilization of the limb to create the space, and then some very gentle Anma massage just to seal it all in. So that's basically how Anma works. Year 2, Sitai, you're really getting into the ligaments and the fascia in a much deeper way, and really understanding the connections and making corrections that are a bit more sophisticated, if I put it that way, not just focused on the larger muscles or necessarily acupuncture points, but really getting into and understanding what the ligaments do and how you can actually make corrections via that route. There's much more of an emphasis on following lesion patterns in year 2, and actually allowing the soft tissue to take you to the limit of that lesion pattern in order to then bring somebody out of it. And that's a bit more, there's a bit more mobility involved in that. We call it a kinetic Kyushu correction, because you can literally, I can follow a lesion pattern from the big toe right up to the thigh by moving the joints along the way. It's quite interesting to see it done.
When you say lesion, what do you mean?
The pattern of the tightness or the pull. I can follow it from your big toe and mobilize from your big toe to your ankle, to your knee joint, up to your hip, and follow that pattern all the way up till I get here, and that might be the point I make the correction, or it might be I stop halfway and make the connection that you need, depending on what I find. So that's Sitai, year 2.
Would you say, sorry, just at that point, is that sort of 50-50 energetic stroke, mechanical, or is it a different percentage? Because I'm thinking of, for example, we had Emma Supple, the podiatrist, and she has neck problems, often
absolutely,
caused by, feet problems, and she can sort them out. And I mean, obviously, I think of that as being purely mechanical. But you're talking about subtleties, subtle energy.
You can actually feel it, because with each, each joint that I mobilise, I take it to its full range of motion. I see how far it can go, and I hold it. I can hold it there, and then track it to the next joint, and take it there. So it's more than just the structural. I can actually feel where it's going.
Percentage energy, or what percentage? Because obviously energy is part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, percentage-wise, I don't know. What would you say?
I would say it's a combination, really, because we are energetic beings.
Yeah, it's an exchange anyway,
So whatever connection you're making with the body, you're making a physical connection, but also that energetic thing that you're also following.
You are, and I'm using my intention as well. So I am being very intentional about what I'm doing, and that plays my absolutely.
The fascia level is very reminiscent to me of bowing technique. I don't know if you know bowing technique. Because that's talking about working at small movements at the level of the fascia. But also it's talking about energy.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering how much
It's such, that there is overlap, and I think that there is an element of Amatsu that I think that does borrow or sit very comfortably alongside other there is overlap, definitely, and energy is the common sort of thread between a lot of complementary therapies, but we actively work with it alongside the 5 other areas. So it's the structure, it's the ligaments, it's the bones, it's the muscles, it's the fascia, it's the energy flow. All of those things we're tracking with the movement, with the same ultimate aim, which is to free up the tissue and create space. That's the ultimate aim, because it's the space that allows for the mobility then that gives you back your alignment. That's always the end game with Amatsu. Okay, so that is Sitai. Year 3 is Shinden. And Shinden is very much more focused on the restrictions in fascia and the correlations with specific organs. And you're getting much more into emotion, you're much more into the neurological aspect of it, and really how organs hold emotion, and how to, and we're making very, very different corrections to the body via the organ. It's very difficult to explain how Shinden works, actually. It's very much around the fascia around the organs, because the fascia is the connective tissue around every aspect of your and it's very, very it's fine. It's very strong, but it's very fine, and you have to actually interact with the fascia to make changes at the Shinden level, and very much more focused on the cranial aspect of that as well, and corrections that you can make along the TS line, and and the temporal lobes and stuff like that. It's very much more the cranial stuff that we were talking about, and the occiput, and how the head is actually sitting at the top of the spine, and what you need to correct at that end. So you'd always start with the pelvis, as I said, but work your way up, and there's a lot of corrections that you can do using points along the temporal lobe, the head, acupuncture points around the head as well, that make very, very effective corrections.
So when you say organs hold emotion, do you mean like liver and
Yeah.
Not just the heart?
There's a muscle and an emotion correlation. So psoas, which is one of the most important muscles in the body, because it connects the top of the body, the upper body and the lower body, but psoas holds a lot of emotion. It's linked to the liver, and it holds a lot of fear. So there's a lot of emotion, and when you do something called the psoas release, which is a correction that we use, it can actually, people can become quite emotional because it is such a release. So there's an emotion and a correlation between muscles and emotions, and organs and emotions as well, and how we hold things.
So can I ask, when you get to that level of your training, that level of depth in the obviously body, anatomy and things, is there a little bit of intuition coming in? So you're tuning into the body, the mind, the spirit and the person, so you're feeling as well, so you are
receptive, and I think it is that you are working, your energy is working with it, so you're picking up on things, definitely, and you're being intentional in what you're doing, and you have to be very clear that that emotion, that's not mine, that's with the client, so I have to work with that. I can't take that with me, that isn't mine. So you have to be a lot more conscious of that,
Respectful of.
And knowing that, what's not yours, and and being unswitched is very, very important in all of that.
Yes, you don't.
You've got enough of my own.
So Shinden, so Anma, Sitai and Shinden. I am Anma and Sitai trained. I'm not Shinden trained yet. I think you're Shinden. Yes, Kenku as well. So Nicola is way more advanced, but there's a lot to say about Shinden actually, in terms of that's a whole different level, isn't it? You're
kind of balancing the organs, because every organ has its own motility. and it's got to fit in 3D wise with all the motility of all the other organs. So you can imagine when you're breathing, your lungs are opening up like this, making space for the heart.
Yeah.
And then as you exhale, you're massaging the heart. So the heart's got its own motion, and then you've got this big liver here. And as the lungs fill, the liver rocks on all of its ligaments. So if one ligament is too tight or fixed anywhere, then the liver isn't going to be able to move properly how it should do as you're breathing. So it can actually impact your breathing. Lots of different, all sorts of different things going on there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, if anybody is interested in Amatsu, then you can go to the website, which is Amatsu Therapy International UK, which will give you a bit more information. And the Institute of Amatsu is where the training takes place. You would be part of quite an exclusive group because there aren't a huge number of us practitioners actually, so it's almost like, as I said at the beginning, one of complementary therapy's best kept secrets. But the people who do know about it are hugely passionate about it as well, and hopefully word will spread. So
part-time course or full-time?
It's taught in blocks of about, so you do about 5 or 6 blocks a year, and the blocks are 4-day blocks. And you
just have
at a time, and there's homework and there's exams at the end, and each block covers a different component. They may be making some changes to it, but that's generally how it is. So you wouldn't need to attend a course full time for a year. It's taught in specific, so you can combine it with, if you're already employed, and you can do the components, which is how most of us did it as well, while we were doing something else full time.
Is that London based?
It was in Rickmansworth when I did it. It's now moved, and at the moment it's the Amatsu training school that I trained in is not operating anymore. We've now merged with the Amatsu Institute in Ireland, so I think there may be some courses in Ireland. I don't think the venue in England has been confirmed yet. That will probably come up on the website at some point soon.
Excuse for a bit of travel.
Nice part of the world. This part of the world. But yeah, if you're curious, do take a look. It's really fascinating.
Yeah. Now my legs were hurting just before we stood up to go over there to watch the Ing on the couch, and now they're not.
Interesting. You've unswitched.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I was able to stand and have a cup of tea on the arm, got to sit down. Yeah, that was interesting.
Interesting. Okay. Any other questions?
I was just wondering about, talking about the emotions being held. Do you get big emotional releases during a therapy session?
You can.
Yeah.
So as releases, definitely you can get that. And I would also say at the very end with the occiput hold is such a freeing up for people that you can get quite a bit teary-eyed at that point, because it's a lovely thing to experience and to give people as well.
Because we're only just tapping into the mind-body connection now, aren't we? There's a massive mind.
Absolutely.
I don't need to tell you, but it's only just been discovered.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we all know it's there, actually.
Yeah, I think instinctively we do. Yeah.
I think we all know it's there. I think science is waking up.
Do you know the College of Medicine?
No.
The College of Medicine used to be the Prince of Wales's integrative medicine foundation.
Okay.
And then that closed down when there was a bit of a financial scandal when the treasurer ran off with a large sum of money.
Oh dear.
So the Prince of Wales distanced himself from that.
Dear.
And all the, if you like, the movers and shakers set up a new organisation for promoting complementary therapy called the College of Medicine.
Okay.
And Dr. Michael Dixon is the chair, who's a GP down in Devon, who's a great believer in complementary therapy. And Charles still is very much a patron.
Okay.
But it's not got his name attached to it anymore, They've just set up a body-mind faculty.
Oh.
And the Havening We have them, with Louise and Mike. They've just done their first training day under the College of Medicine's wing for the body-mind faculty. And I was saying, are they going to be expanding it to include other therapies? And they said very much so. So I just might be of interest.
That would be, okay.
But they've got a lot of influence. And there used to be an all-party parliamentary group for integration run by David Trebillick, who was an MP, and he stood down at the election before last, and that parliamentary group collapsed. And all the representatives of different organisations who are sort of, regularly attending, they moved over and set up a new organisation, which currently is on the College of Medicine site, called the IMA, which is something like the Integrative Medicine Association or something like that. But they're going to become independent, to become a promoting, and they've got lots of leaflets about the different therapies and videos on YouTube explaining the different therapies, gradually expanding their range as well. So that's another.
That is interesting.
Aspect to the whole. It's all about getting acceptance and understanding of the body, so people know what's
absolutely.
Available. They can, one of my healer friends, who's a Reiki master, he's got the concept of producing an app which integrates all the information about what treatment works in how well for each condition. So it's a major thing. He thinks AI is going to make it a lot easier. And that he's trying to promote that as well. He thinks it's going to save the NHS billions by getting people to, like you go and have one treatment and that doesn't work, so you then go off and see a different specialist. And in the NHS, and the medical world, you can go roundabout because no one can sort you out, and no one's a generalist. They're all just, well, I'm only a skin man, and I'm a joint man,
That's separated the body.
Absolutely.
But people will do the same thing with complementary therapies as well. They'll go and try one thing, that didn't work, I'll go and
That's true,
I think often though with, I don't know, especially complementary therapies, it's all about the therapist.
I think,
the energy exchange between
I think that's
the
true.
therapist and the client. So you could have an Amatsu therapy, session with somebody different and go, oh, this is best sliced bread, and then go down the road because you've moved and you go to another Amatsu practitioner and go, no, I don't like that.
So true.
And you see the reflexologist do that.
Same with doctors.
Well, very much the same with doctors. I was, in my training, I did vocational training in Ipswich, and we had, if you've heard of Michael Barland, we had Barland groups, which is like a psychotherapeutic group, to actually look into all these sort of psychological aspects of the doctor-patient relationship, and the fact that the drug often is the doctor, and it's the doctor-patient relationship.
That's really true.
And trust and all that. And we were doing that as a group weekly for 3 years. Preparation for general practice.
Do they do much of that now?
Barling groups are still going. Yes, I think at that time it was very much real enthusiasts from the Royal College of GPs who were running my course, because it was still voluntary then. Now everyone has to do vocational training, so it's a little bit more samey in a way. It's not the sort of centres of excellence, so to speak.
I think often it's what if you've got confidence that the thing's going to help you, they could give you a sugar pill. And if you really believe it's going to help.
You're talking about placebo.
This is the thing,
But that's a big part of healing.
But being ready to be healed, or to allow yourself to heal, rather than being stuck in being the victim.
Absolutely.
Or no one can help me, I'm stuck. And being receptive and open to
and I want
realising, like you say, this isn't working for me.
On that, have you somebody saw surgeons on the edge of life? Did anyone see surgeons? And there was this 75-year-old woman, she had a tumour, it was this big, and they weighed it, it was massive, it was enormous. But the matron of that hospital sat all the new doctors down and said, what's the most important gland in the body? And they said, thyroid gland, adrenal, or whatever. She said, no, it's the upfront gland. She says,
like that.
Patients up for it, then it's more likely to go well. That's from the matron of this hospital. And this operation was something like 15 hours or something, and they got this tumour out and they weighed it. And in the theatre, they're guessing the weight. Guess the weight. Guess correctly wins. And it was something like it was horrific. But the lady was about 75, but she was up for it.
Yes.
You know, she was oh well, I'm going to go stiff. I don't have this dance, so I might as well have it done, sort of thing. You know, and yeah, the motion that's. So again, it's that mind-body sort of up for it connection. But how do you do that if they haven't got it or don't believe it?
No, they'll do it in their own time, in their own way.
Yeah.
People come to it in their own.
Yeah, come back in the next lifetime and do it.
Oh my God. Okay.
We can't do it for somebody else.
No, you can't.
No. It's an incredible program though. What they're
Oh, bet, sounds it.
But, so they, like some surgeons, they're stitching sort of a piece of the heart together. They practice on tomato skins. Literally, it's so delicate. And then of course they're under time pressure.
Ew. Wow.
Just absolutely. I only show the good stuff.
Like it.
Broadcast that, but it's just incredible what they're doing that they couldn't do even 5 years ago. So,
It moves very quickly, doesn't it? Okay. I think I will leave it there. Any more questions on this chilly evening? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Thank you.